just going for those comfort picks for the players. Golden Glue potentially going to be picking up at Lissandra. Nice pickup for him. Like we said already, Solo King's be able to do some things with Gnar. But on the flip side, it does leave open a couple of things for the side of Trick and his army. Corki's going to be picked up. Very powerful AD carry right now. And then Jace, which potentially could be top, potentially could be mid. Once again, playing with those mind games for solo lanes.
Yeah, and one thing to note is that Fabi picked this Corki last night every single game, even into the graves. Not worried about that lane matchup counter. Clearly his favorite champion. So good on Trick2g's team to kind of get that comfort pit for Zerbic and deny Fabi of that champion that he just did so much work with in the night prior. We do see again that Vel'Koz locked in. That is most likely pretty much guaranteedly for a Zingy. We've seen him play one support so far this week in all 3 games yesterday, and that was, of course, Vel'Koz as well. The Udyr hover over here, wouldn't be surprised to see this locked in at all. Obviously, Trick2g, the Udyr god, the Udyr king, going to do a lot of work on that champion. And then Thresh also a hover over. Thresh, pretty solid matchup against Vel'Koz. Definitely vulnerable to getting poked out in a lot of these situations, but also, has that hook. If he does land it, he's going to be able to hard engage no problem. And Vel'Koz's ability to disengage is pretty limited. You do see that Janna is still available, however, so I wouldn't be surprised to see that, maybe swap to it the last second, but at the same time, obviously, Thresh against Vel'Koz is a pretty solid matchup.
I'm actually going to talk a little bit more about that bottom lane. You did say that Fabi was unafraid to pick the Corki into the Graves counter pick matchup in the bottom lane in the previous matchup in the quarterfinals. However, here he's on the opposite side of it. So as soon as that Corki got taken away from him, he goes in that rotation and picks up the Graves. The Graves and Vel'Koz, one thing that really just speaks to me about that is, holy crap, that's a lot of damage that's going to be coming into that bottom lane area there. So going for someone who's maybe a little bit tankier, has the ability to get Corki out of some sticky situations in that Thresh, not the worst pickup in the world right here. So I'm going to be really kind of pointing my interest towards that side of the map. Now, Trick's style is, of course, he's going to be farming up the jungle for a very long period of time. So with that vulnerable area on the map, Nightblue plays the exact opposite style, where he likes facilitating his lanes and getting them to carry the game, or to a point where they can just be comfortable dominating that lane matchup. So knowing that this Corki and Thresh is going into a very high DPS bottom lane counter matchup here on the Graves and the Vel'Koz, it really kind of speaks to me of is Nightblue going to focus that bottom lane a lot? Because, well, that's just the way he plays.
Yeah, and Nightblue is going to pick up the Lee Sin here as that last pick. He did a lot of work with it last night in the game 1, the only game where it was available to him. He made so many plays, started off the game with a couple kills, kept kicking people back into his team every time, using that kind of insect level play in every single one of the picks and every single one of the team fights, and ended up dominating the first game in the evening. Guys, it looks like our overlay is currently broken, so I'm going to run you real quick through the picks for both sides. On Trick2g's side, we have RF Legendary in the top lane with that Jace, Trick2g himself on that Udyr, Strumpus in the mid lane on Azir, Zerbic and 9JX in the bot lane, Zerbic on Corgi, 9JX on that Thresh. On the opposite side, we have Zen the Solo King, top lane Gnar, Nightblue on that jungle Lee Sin, Golden Glue on Lissandra in the mid lane, Fabi on Graves in the bottom, and a Zingy, of course, on his standby, that Vel'Koz support. These are 2 teams I'm really excited to see go at it. Trick2g's kind of split push style, but we don't see him exactly making those picks that support it. RF Legendary on Jace, a much more poke-oriented champion, kind of has a bit of an assassin role if he can get ahead enough in the early game, but definitely not the best for split pushing. How do you think this team comp's going to work out for them?
It's actually very interesting. You do mention the split pushing kind of factor, and the only one that really kind of speaks to me is the Udyr in this matchup. That's what Trick does. That's what he likes to pick. That's how he plays the matchup. But there's nobody that can really kind of go toe to toe or kind of help him out with that. Now, of course, there's going to be a lot of map movement with an Azir, with a Thresh, with a Jace, with the gate being able to speed everybody up and slow down the enemies. There's going to be a lot of poke potential, a lot of siege potential coming out of Trick's team, which could see maybe going from the split push strategy more into a siege kind of composition, which we've kind of seen a bit of metamorphosis in Trick's playstyle throughout the OMEN encounter. He likes opening the gates, he likes doing his flip push thing, but when they actually get a lead, they turn into a tower sieging composition with all this poke coming out from his team. It's going to be really, really hard for Golden Glue's team to kind of counteract, but like we said, there's hard engage, there's the ability to lock somebody down with that Lissandra, there's the ability to kick somebody, catch them out of place with Lee Sin. Gnar jumping into the middle of a team that wants to disengage and poke on them is going to be a very, very difficult thing to contest with. So I really think it's going to be how the early game goes. It's Udyr, Trick2g is going to farm that one up. Lee Sin from the side of Nightblue, he's going to be looking to make plays early and get those lanes ahead. I think that's really going to be the deciding thing in this matchup.
Yeah, definitely. Because as you get into the late game, Trick2g is going to be able to pretty much solo kill anyone outside of Fabi in the very, very late game. So, one of the big things to consider for Nightblue squad is like, how are they going to play this in the mid game, especially too? Like, if they can get an advantage on Nightblue, how are they going to transition? Obviously, they have a lot of power in the team fights, but they're also very limited by the kind of the Mega Gnar cooldown. They need Mega Gnar to get off that CC, and of course, you have to time it very well on those team fights. And we saw last night when Zen the Solo King played Gnar, he did very well on a lot of team fights, but there's a lot of ones where he performed very poorly simply because he did not time the Mega Gnar appropriately. So, will Nightblue's team now with a little bit more experience be able to get those better timings, or will they, mess it up a little bit? Because Trick2g's team is not one that you can afford to make mistakes like that, especially when you have so much late game power and so much damage coming out from this Corki Azir Jace combo.
Well, speaking of timing, Sifa, the time on the clock till we start this game is getting very, very thin. Guys, we're about to start a best-of-5 semifinal between Trick2g and Nightblue. Guys, there's a lot of League of Legends action coming your way. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but as soon as we get back, we're going to jump into the Rift here for game number 1 of the OMEN Encounter semifinals. Welcome back, everybody. Like I said, we are going on to the Rift for game number 1 of the OMEN Encounter semi-final best-of-5 series. It's Trick and his army on the blue side, Nightblue and his team on the red side. I'm probably going to get that confused point in this game, but it looks like right away we have Trick and his team going for a little bit of an invade action on the bottom side of the river here, Sifa.
Yeah, no surprises there. This is kind of the early game aggression we've seen from a lot of teams. They do favor this kind of bot side, sit in the bush, invade. And then on the opposite side, you of course see Zen the Solo King immediately responding with that top side vision. Obviously, they spotted at least one of these characters out. You see now immediately Fabi is going to back out. And Trick2g is going to do kind of something similar on the bottom side of the map. These early starting camps are so crucial, and you can get so much information about your enemy's jungle path. And when you're playing against an Udyr, it's pretty important to know where he is. He's not going to put a whole ton of pressure on the lanes in the early game, but for Nightblue, who has to worry about facing him 1v1 in the jungle, he needs to know when Trick's coming in.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point here. Trick known for his ability to farm the jungle, known for his ability for counter jungling as well. So Nightblue, even though he's got that Lee Sin, a very powerful duelist, very early game-centric jungler, having that information over Trick is just going to be something that he's going to be able to use. Like we said in the champion slide, he likes to facilitate his lanes and get them an early advantage. So knowing where Trick is and is not, it's going to help him out a little bit here. And not running into Udyr, not dropping low in the jungle, trying to get a duel off, also going to be beneficial because that means he can get ganks off a lot easier. But both sides are going to be starting off with some vision of the blue buff area. We see a Krug start from the side of Trick2g, getting a little bit of help from his bottom lane for the leash from that. The opposite side of the map, the Krugs are also going to be going over to Nightblue. He's starting up there with Zen the Solo King, and we have all standard lane matchups from the beginning of this game. Duos on the bot side of the map, solos on the top and middle side, and it's really just going to be about what jungler is going to really strike first. I mean, they're both team captains, and like we said, they're probably the pivotal players to watch in this early game.
Yeah, and one of the things you can see immediately is that with Nightblue's pathing, he's going to put himself on the bottom side of the map, which means he either has to gank the mid lane or the bot lane. So ganking bot lane seems really difficult, so I imagine it's more likely that we'll see a lot of pressure on that mid lane. Golden Clue, of course, with that Lissandra pick, able to provide enough CC that Nightblue is going to be able to pretty much guaranteedly land that Sonic Wave, which is just such a huge part of any gank. And then, of course, depending on when they back, they're going to both Trick2g and Nightblue are going to have access to that Chilling Smite, which is, the slow and the true damage, which is just can do so much work in these early game ganks. But, you see right now Nightblue going very low, may have to back before continuing his jungle clear. And if he does, we have seen him in the past immediately go for the upgraded jungle item and then immediately transitions to a gank. So I'm curious if he is going to play very aggressive here or if he's going to, play a little more cautious and keep farming up. You can see he has got that item. He will have the Stalker's Smite. Sorry, not the Chilling Smite. Is it the Chilling Smite or is it Stalker's Smite? Regardless.
No, it's the duelist item. He's going to be reducing damage from the enemies that he smites. He's going to be dealing a little bit of true damage. And of course, it wouldn't be a game I'm casting without a pause in the middle of everything. But we already see a little bit of deviation from the two captains in the junglers. He's at Stalker's Blade picked up here for Nightblue. He's going to be going more about the ganking, going to be wind up reducing movement speed when he smites people for the Chilling Smite. And then we have on the opposite side with Trick, who's going to wind up living in the jungle. He's gone for the Ranger's Trailblazer. He's going to smite an enemy. He's going to wind up getting a 15% extra health and mana regeneration when he winds up using that smite on something. So he's going to be more about staying in the jungle, fighting against the monsters, whereas Nightblue, true to his style, he's going for more about fighting enemy champions.
Yeah, and in the early game, this makes a lot of sense. I mean, or in the mid game, this is going to make a lot more sense. In the early game, it's going to be tough, but it will give Trick2g a better jungle clear. And in the mid game, you know, getting that mana back is going to be so critical because Trick2g is almost guaranteedly going to have to give up his blue buff to either this Azir mid lane or this Jace top lane. Both of those champions, you know, kind of needing blue buff. Jace, especially if he goes with the Tear of the Goddess, needs that to stack the tier as quickly as possible. So makes a lot of sense to keep that mana sustain up. And Trick2g, you know, loves to counter jungle, and in order to do that, you need to be able to clear your own jungle very healthily.
Well, taking a look around the map, nothing really all too big has popped up in my head. We did talk about in Champions Select. I really wanted to focus on this Corki Thresh versus Vel'Koz Graves bottom lane matchup. It looks like Corki and Thresh were able to get a slight level 2 earlier than Graves and Vel'Koz, prompting them to push them in just a little bit. But we already see some trade damage going back and forth. Graves burst being able to take Corki down fairly low, and dodging out that phosphorus bomb with the dash coming out from Graves, not necessarily the hardest thing in the world. I'm really going to be interested on when these trades come into play. Vel'Koz has taken Exhaust, whereas 9JX on Thresh has wound up going for the Ignite. So surprisingly, the lane that's dealing a lot of burst damage hasn't gone for the all-in kill factor, whereas the opposite side has.
Yeah, but at the same time, when you're playing Vel'Koz support, you really give up a lot of utility. Obviously, you have a lot of damage innately in your kit, but you're just not going to be able to offer the same amount of CC that another pick would. You do see, however, the flash immediately burned there. Vel'Koz going to use Zingy himself going to use that knock-up to the most effectiveness, and 9JX having to burn a flash. So, you know, even though Vel'Koz doesn't have a whole ton of CC, when you've got people there to follow up on even just that little knock-up, it can do so much work.
Zen the Solo King pushing his top lane, comes in for a gank in the middle lane, gets the slow from the boomerang down. Stromp is taken low. Meanwhile, by Dragon, a fight is broken out. Looks like Trick is trying to solo that one himself. Now it's a 3-on-3. 9JX caught between a rock and a hard place, and the Zingy's going to be the one picks up the kill for first blood. Now Golden Glue, Zen the Solo King come down, Flash was burned, and Golden Glue picks up a kill on Trick2g. Trick trying to sneak a dragon, and now it's Nightblue's team, Family Force of 5, going in and taking the first dragon for themselves.
Really good decision making from the team overall, and really good read too. You know, Trick2g does love going for those early dragons, does love creating as much of an advantage as he can from the jungle. So, you know, good call by Nightblue's team to intercept that, and obviously great turnaround. 2 kills for themselves, and now the first dragon, that 6% AD and AP buff, going to come in huge here as they move later into the game. And, you know, this is setting the pace for the game already. Their team is, by nature, very snowbally, and now with Zen the Solo King and Golden Glue getting a little bit of an advantage from that situation, this is going to push their lanes even farther ahead. You know, Gnar is going to be able to do so much more work in a team fight with any small advantage, and of course, Lissandra with that kill now under her belt will be able to get cooldown reduction and damage that much faster. So every single ultimate, or every single team fight, her ultimate will most likely be available when she hits level 6, which is going to be a huge factor here.
Yeah, and actually Lissandra in that mid lane, after picking up a kill on Udyr in the jungle, was able to get a blue buff as well. So going to be able to have a lot more ability to spam those spells down on poor Azir. She did want to going back, picking up, looks like Fiendish Codex, as well as some boots, some wards to keep herself alive and protect that blue buff in the mid lane for just a little bit longer. Strampus, on the other hand, had gone back just a little bit earlier, but now he's the one getting engaged on, puts out the Emperor's Divide, pushes back Golden Blue, but in comes the Zingy from the bottom. Frozen Tomb goes out, and the Zingy's the one who picks up another kill for the support Vel'Koz.
And that's just great map pressure there. You can see 9JX rotating just a little bit slower than a Zingy, and Trick2g similarly not able to get there in time. Golden Glue knowing very well that he did not have the damage on his own to kill Strampus in that situation, but because he does have a little bit of damage coming in from his team, he's able to use his cooldowns to keep Strampus locked down, to stop him from escaping, and overall just pick up that kill very easily.
Well, the early map movement has gone in favor of Nightblue's team to pick up the first dragon. After that kill in mid lane, they pick up the first tower as well. So they have a solid gold advantage, although it's only about 2k. 2k at the 7.5 minute mark is a fairly large sum of gold, and we can already see it in some of the itemization. A tier for RF Legendary on Jace in the top lane, as well as just a longsword. Gonna be matched already by a Giant's Belt for Zen the Solo King on Gnar in that top lane, although it does have a little bit more experience for RF Legendary, as he did not leave his lane during that dragon tussle going on towards the bottom side of the map. Graves has already picked up a pickaxe and a longsword, whereas Corki, he's got the burst damage in that Sheen, but it's not the consistent damage for these extended trades in the bottom lane going on. So a little bit more power on the side of Graves, especially going when you factor in that buckshot. Already level 3 picked up for that for Fabi, as he is level 5. So some itemizations coming in for the side of Nightblue's team. It's only going to be natural because how they've been moving around the map so far.
Yeah, and one of the big things to consider here is despite the fact that RF Legendary is obviously doing very well on this Jace pick and, you know, no CS lead anymore, but still going to be charging up that tier and waiting for that power spike, his teleports just aren't going to have the same impact as the teleport from Gnar. Gnar, obviously, in that Mega Gnar form, just provides so much CC and so much AoE damage in a team fight, whereas a TP from Jace, yeah, he can Shock Blast, yeah, he may be able to assassinate a single target, but, you know, his multi-target damage and his CC kit is just so very limited compared to Gnar's. So, RF Legendary may be able to TP to split push, but TPing to team fight is never going to be as good as Zen the Solo King's team fight, or TP in a lot of these situations.
And Solo King did use his teleport after that dragon engagement to go back towards top lane, whereas RF Legendary still has teleport for himself. Although with no real big objectives on the map besides, well, the Azir tower that wound up being taken down right there, that teleport factor may not be a huge thing unless there's going to be some ganking going on from the side of Trick's team. We do see Nightblue did kind of pop up towards the top lane area, but RF Legendary already had a ward in the river brush, kind of just pushed Lee Sin away after a little bit of damage trade going on between the two over there. Bottom side of the map, though, despite having some early advantages here, a Zingy picking up the 2 kills, Fabi getting 2 of the assists down here, Zervik and 9JX have consistently pushed up that bottom lane.
Yeah, and you can see that there is now ward coverage courtesy of Golden Blue on Trick2g's Blue. He's going to donate that one over to Strompus. Good call by him. Azir is obviously going to need that in the phase, but now they're going to have the blue timer, and that is an objective they will be able to fight over later in the game. So something to look for is, you know, in 5 minutes when that blue comes back up, how exactly are they going to play around it? Will Nightblue's team capitalize on that vision advantage they created for themselves? Or, you know, are they just going to use this to know where Trick2g is and just give their bot lane a little bit more confidence in how they're playing their lane?
Well, one of the things actually is Trick hasn't been able to really out-farm Nightblue that heavily. It's only a 4 CS advantage, and Nightblue's already been a part of a dragon, a tower, and 2 kills for his team. So already the momentum in favor of Nightblue's team. This is what we were talking about. The early game advantages picked up by Lee Sin jungler, the ability to try to move around the map and get his lanes ahead of the enemy's teams. However, this bottom lane, I keep going back to it because I'm just kind of surprised that this Corki Thresh matchup has so much pushing power against, I guess it's the squishiness of Vel'Koz, and Graves, you know, not necessarily a super squishy AD carry, but I mean, the guy's got a gun still. He's not really built for defenses. We all saw that movie where he tried to take on Nautilus and wound up dying, so... I mean, Nautilus doesn't even deal damage, so...
To be fair, if Nautilus looked anything in-game like he did in that video, it would be very different.
Whatever. Let's talk about a jungler that deals damage, like Lee Sin coming in here, getting the kick down to 9JX, and Fabi's the one who picks up the kill with the collateral damage right there. Nightblue dropping low, does get the safeguard over to Fabi, dodges out from the rocket. Keeble got very low, but won't drop down. It's a 4th kill compared to 0 picked up here for Nightblue's team. In the top lane, they're already going in, the 2 solo laners in the top lane trying to take that tower down. We do see that Strompus has arrived on that Azir, forcing back Golden Blue and send the soul.
Yeah, one of the big things about this bottom lane is that they obviously have so much burst damage with that Graves pick, so when they have Nightblue there to give them a little bit of confidence and to stop Zervik and 9JX from following up, they can blow all their cooldowns comfortably, and they're always going to be able to get a kill. Vel'Koz obviously doing so much with just bases, and Fabi playing Graves. Graves probably one of the stronger characters who scales with AD, both, you know, the buckshot and the collateral damage, just doing so much work at level 6.
Well, top lane here, we see Zen the Solo King taking a bit of poke from RF Legendary. Looks like maybe trying to force a trade right here. Mega Gnar is not available, gets a lot of damage down. Also gets the rage bar up full, so that's going to force the Mega Gnar transition right now. Teleports are available, as is this dragon, however, so that means that Mega Gnar might not be up if a dragon fight happens in just the next couple of seconds. Does seem that Nightblue's team, their priority is by that dragon. The pink wards are down, the scuttle crab is down, and the kick has gone out. Looks like they're going to try to start this one up. The only one nearby from Trick's team is 9JX. Trick is actually in the mid lane trying to push down this tower with Strompus. They trade a tower for potentially a dragon right here. Don't think they're going to collapse. They're just going to keep going for towers. Top lane timer goes down. Dragon does go in favor of Nightblue's team, but so far it's a 2 tower for dragon trade for Trick.
And you can see Nightblue still with kind of that Season 4 mentality, putting so much priority on Dragon. That second Dragon has very little value at this stage in the game. So getting a Dragon, but giving up the entirety of your gold advantage is not going to play very important here. You see Trump's immediately ultimately locked into the Soul King.
Yes, and the Solo King getting taken down very, very low. Like I said, no Mega Gnar. The Rage Bar had already been ticked off there, and RF Legendary is going to be the one who picks up a kill. Some nice roam coming in from Trick's side of the team right now. We talked about their mobility and the potential to move around the map and siege down on towers. They're just actually going and taking the towers down while Nightblue's team is else around the map. So very surprising here. They were down early but not out, and actually the gold's all evened up right now.
And this isn't too surprising. This is Trick2g's team in a nutshell. You know, they may suffer a lot in the early game. If they get an advantage, they do very well. But when they're behind, they're always good about responding to map pressure. You can see they saw Nightblue's team committed down to that bot lane, so they instantly hook a turret in the top lane and in the mid lane. And then when they saw Nightblue's team still not moving to respond, they were able to rush up into that top lane and get a gank off on Zen the Solo King. So good play overall from Trick2g's team. This is the kind of stuff they want to be doing. They want to look for those 3v1 situations. They want to split push, and they want to use this mobility the best they can. And so far, they're doing a very excellent job of that. And one of the big questions is going to be, how is Nightblue's team going to respond? You know, if they can't get the big team fight, a lot of their team comp is very wasted.
Wow, that was a lot of damage coming out here. Graves and Vel'Koz, the burst from both those ultimates just evaporating 9JX. Thresh, normally a bit of a tanky support, but 0-3-0 at 13-something minutes into the game, not necessarily having the beefiness to survive that ultimate combination there.
Yeah, and keep in mind at this point in the game, collateral damage is doing almost 450 damage at base. So just an absurd amount of damage on that burst kit, and the Zingy with no AP is going to be able to do so much work with just his Q doing 200 damage. So 600 damage between two abilities there, and you know, that's only one part of the rotation. So huge damage coming out from this bot lane, doing so much work in that exchange, and this is exactly what we thought might happen. And now that Fabi and the Zingy have this lead, they're very comfortable continuously doing that every time their ultimates are off cooldown.
Well, speaking of a lot of damage, mid lane, we actually wanted to catch you a glimpse of Golden Glue being forced back from the raw DPS coming out from Strumpus. Morel Namakamen Sorcerer issues picked up for him. On the flip side, Morel Namakamen now in need to see large rod picked up by Golden Glue. So he was a little bit down in items in that trade. Kind of goes back and picks up some more for himself. Bottom lane, you're going to see this tower taking a lot of damage from Zerbic and 9JX. Zingy here with his 2 kills and 3 assists is going to be able to fend them off for the time being, but the kills tell one story. It's 5-1 in favor of Nightblue's team, but the gold is all evened up. Nightblue's team has 1 extra tower, which I believe was an Azir tower that went down. They've
only taken 1 actual tower. They've taken 2 Azir towers, both of those in the mid lane picked up by Golden Glue. So Golden Glue does get a bit of a gold advantage from that, but it's not a gold advantage for the team like the scoreboard might indicate.
Yeah, and the thing is, we talked about Nightblue on his Lee Sin, early game focus, wants to get his lanes ahead, gank bottom lane, it worked out well and turned into that dragon, immediately going towards the mid lane, being able to pick up a kill on a tower since then. They focused the dragon yet again, but the thing is, the bottom lane, they haven't been able to win that matchup despite the early focus that Lee Sin put down there. 130 CS compared to 115. Fabi might be able to take this tower finally while the bottom lane is away, but still, we were talking about how the Graze against a Corki, the Graze does extremely well in that matchup, what was going to happen because of it.
In the spot lane.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to wind up paying with his life for this, and Arf Legendary winds up going in. He takes to the skies, knocks Fabi back. The Ignite from 9JX goes off. Solo King comes in with a teleport. Arf Legendary, good sidestep on the boomerang there. 9JX now, but he's going to get blown up by a Zingy coming with the laser. Meanwhile, mid lane, Strumpus gets knocked up here. Is going to wind up going down to Nightblue. And actually, the Frozen Tomb used by Golden Glue for the lockup. Nightblue getting a kick afterwards, sealing the deal on that one. So trades all across the map. It looks like in the grand scheme of things, though, it is a 1-for-2 in favor of Nightblue's team.
Yeah, Nightblue's team doing a lot of work in that situation. Good on his Zingy to pick up that kill. RF Legendary really underestimating the burst damage coming out from Grace. Has to be careful here.
Oh, no.
Get knocked up and taken down. Nightblue doing so much work. 2-0-3 at this stage in the game, making the plays across the map. And you can see, this is kind of the classic Trick2g. In these 5v5 games, it's really hard for Meteor to have that early game impact in the same way he does in solo queue. We know that as Trick goes into the mid to late game, he does tend to do better, but right now, when, you know, the enemy team is trying to accrue this gold lead as quickly as possible, approaching a 3K gold lead, that Udyr pick is kind of crippling his team.
And one of the things we saw early on was the failed dragon attempt, the failed couple of kills, and the loss of a tower in mid lane really put Trick on Udyr behind. But being able to win out on that bottom lane despite having the early ganks from Nightblue, being able to take top tower in a 1v1 matchup between RF Legendary and Zen the Solo King, it really helped Trick kind of come back into the game. He was able to safely farm his own jungle, get some itemization, picked up his Moby boots, and started building towards his Trinity Force. But as soon as that lane phase dissolved, as soon as those other members of Trick's team started dying in these trades, he was still left to farming his own jungle, and he gets caught out of position and they give up another objective. So even though there's not a lot of towers out on the map, only 3 for this side of Nightblue's team, despite the scoreboard and Azir towers saying otherwise, 2 of those are already in the mid lane, and that's a lot of forward pressure on the map. Blue actually in the jungle here over by Nightblue side. Strombus getting locked up by Frozen Tomb. The Emperor's Divide does force back both Nightblue and Golden Blue. RF Legendary and Zen the Solo King fighting in the lane just above. Trick2g also nearby. Looks like the Mega Gnar coming out here. The flash and the Gnar. RF Legendary will not get stunned up right there from the slam coming out from Gnar. He's going to try switching forward, trying to get out of this one. Nightblue taken low. He's able to pick up a kill right here with Golden Blue coming in from the side as well. Strombus now stuck here, trying to get out here. The laser coming out from Vel'Koz. Not going to be enough as Zingy unable to pick that one up with the life form disintegration ray. A lot of words coming out from that ultimate, but a lot of damage as well. Looks like a 1-for-1 trade in favor of Nightblue's team.
I wish it had a cooler acronym. LDR is kind of underwhelming. You know, like
it's not like the Super Mega Death Rocket.
Yeah.
The SMD. Please tell me you just did not get that now.
I did just get that. Oh my god, that's glorious. Almost as glorious as a Zingy in this game. 3-0 and 4. Every one of those knockups landing on point. You can see the only one, pretty much the only one he's missed when it's counted, is that most recent one against Strompus. But a lot of these kills coming in from a Zingy. A huge playmaker in these games, you know, not known to play support, but obviously very comfortable with his Vel'Koz play. And that's going to be the third dragon now for Nightblue's squad.
Yeah, Nightblue already with the third dragon, so they have the pushing power, they have the movement speed bonus, and they already have the 6% AD and AP. We already saw that being a pretty big factor against Trick's team, who is yet to pick up a dragon for themselves. And as we mentioned, Trick's team is really good at sieging down on towers when you have movement speed, damage, and, well, the other sieging power coming out from Nightblue's team. It's not really going to work out. ARF Legendary getting caught out in the mid lane there, also not going to help out. Trick actually taking a lot of damage from the tower at top lane, not going to be able to take it down. Takes down to 173 HP. He drops down to 30 HP himself. Zen the Solo King was on the hunt, not going to find him in that situation. So while Trick's team is hemorrhaging dragons and maybe some small skirmishes and team fights, they're trying to equalize on towers, but they're still down in that regard, as well as the kills. 10 now compared to 2. Wasn't as big of a factor in the earlier stage of this game when the gold counts were still fairly even, but now Nightblue's team, they've taken a fairly large 3.5 gold lead.
Yeah, one of the big things to look at here is particularly Fabi's itemization, how he's benefiting from this gold lead. He will get that Youmuu's Ghostblade shortly. Combining that with the Infinity Edge means that his burst damage is just going to be that much higher, always going to be able to 1v1 Zerbic, despite the fact that Zerbic has got that Triforce power spike at this point. So they have to be very careful about how they play the rest of this game. Even a Zingy has this Haunting, guys, so every single member on Nightblue's team is quickly becoming a threat. Zen the Solo King, his CC alone is going to be able to keep the whole team locked down for 3 seconds if he can get it off. And once again, you know, despite the fact that Trick2g is going to continue split pushing, if he keeps leaving the other members of his teams, you know, kind of leaves them to hang out to dry in that situation, they're going to suffer because of it.
Now, you're pointing out the itemization, but a lot of damage being dealt, and I actually kind of dig that setup here. Nightblue going for a little bit of extra damage, has the Brutalizer for himself, as well as the Warrior upgrade on his Stalker's Blade, so they kind of have 2 AD and 2 AP threats, with this Vel'Koz building very heavy into magic penetration and some ability power as well. 304, kind of becoming a secondary AP carry to Golden Blue's Asandra in the mid lane, and that just leaves Gnar open to do what Gnar does best. He goes super tanky and still deals a lot of burst damage, so they're going to have a very well-balanced kind of team composition. It's going to be really difficult for Trick's team to kind of itemize against that one. We see them on the same path, though, going for just kind of straight-up damage, which gets me a little bit excited, because that means these teams are really going to just all-out brawl when they get into a full 5v5 engagement.
3-second, 4-second team fights is most likely what we would expect to see with this much damage build. Zen the Solo King is going to do work, however, the only person in this entire game building pure tank, and as he gets more magic resistant, as he gets more health and armor, he's going to be able to survive the initial burst, which is going to be a huge part of this team fight. One of the big advantages, of course, from Trick2g's lineup is that they have a reasonable amount of sustained damage with that Azir pick. Azir obviously going to scale so well into the late game, but, you know, in these mid-game team fights, especially these 30-minute, these 35-minute team fights even, you know, that having a tank on your team is going to be a huge factor, and having the amount of heal that Gnar has access to, it means that Fabi is going to be safe pretty much in every single one of these fights.
Forget about peel, the fact that Gnar can just jump into the enemy team here from Trick's side and just blow up all those squishy targets or Gnar them against the wall, which doesn't sound right, but that's the name of his ultimate. That's what he does. If he knocks them all against the wall, that's just GG for Trick's team. They don't have a dedicated tank. They don't have a lot of resistances or health built up. And the ability to just hard engage like that on a team that wants to poke and disengage or run around, it's like it's ridiculously valuable for the side of Nightblue's team. So having that Gnar, having the tank access, going to be very, very potent as we cross into more of the mid stage of this game right now. We're going to about the 23-minute mark right here. It's still 10 kills to 2. The tower story does lie because Azir's towers count for tower kills. It's actually only 4 compared to 2. So Trick's team is not down 8 towers compared to 2, just half of that one. But speaking of here, Nightblue getting caught out in Trick's jungle here. Strompus, though, stuck between a rock and a hard place, does take the Thresh Legend out. Nightblue has to flash towards Trick's base. Flash and a shutdown spree goes over to Trick there. RF Legendary going to get hit up a little bit for some damage, dropping down pretty low, but able to flash over the wall, get himself out of that one. And a pretty decent catch on Nightblue there. Like you said, the utility of having a support like Thresh over Vel'Koz pays off in spades right there. It's a 1-for-0 trade.
Yeah, good play from the Thresh. Just kind of an awkward map movement from Nightblue there, getting caught out in the enemy jungle. Not really positioning very well, played a little bit scared, did have to burn that, I believe burned the flash cooldown to get over the wall, and then immediately went down to Trick2g in that situation. So less than ideal, just not a very good situation. But, you know, overall, I think it's not going to punish their team too badly. Trick2g is going to pick up a turret here as a response, though, but is pinning himself in and may get caught out here.
Well, he opened a gate in the bottom lane, but it looks like the door is going to close on that respawn timer for Trick. He's caught out of there, is going to wind up falling, gets a kill over to Zen, the Solo King. The rest of his team, they were still kind of pushed back towards their own base. They weren't really able to move out and try to put pressure on the map elsewhere, which is, well, what Trick is really all about when it comes to these gate opening style. He goes on the one side, tries to split push, open up all the towers possible. His team wasn't able to really get anything out of that, though, so they get 1 tower, so it's now 3 towers compared to still counting only 4 for the side of Nightblue's team over here. The gold count does close just a little teeny tiny bit closer, but it's still pretty much a solid 3,500 gold lead in favor of Nightblue's team. On top of this, they did wind up sacrificing their own jungler in the last fight, but look at all the forward map vision they have. 3 wards down by the enemy blue buff, 3 more over in their red buff area, and 1 over towards the dragon pit too, because that's coming up in about 20 seconds.
And the dragon is going to be huge here. This obviously would be the 4th dragon for Nightblue squad, and while the 4th dragon may not have an immediate impact, it puts them that much closer to the 5th, and obviously the one that Trick2g's team cannot afford to let them get. You'll remember Trick2g's team already split pushed out Voyboy, I believe, in either the first or the second week. Played phenomenally, but then when Voyboy's team picked up that 5th dragon, they were able to just crush him, push down the mid lane, and end the game in one swift motion. So that is the power of the 5th dragon buff, and they have to be painfully aware of that.
Well, dragon number 4 on board for Nightblue's team, number 1 for the side of Trick. Trick is in the top lane pushing against Zen, the Solo King. There's a teleport available. That tower's down extremely low. It looks like Trick's the one at picking that one up. Zen, the Solo King jumping down onto him. It looks like the dragon fight is going to go over to Nightblue's team. Nightblue is dropped extremely low, and Zen, the Solo King, making the solo kill on Trick in the top lane. Now it's all about this dragon fight where Nightblue goes in, kicks back Zervik. He's going to wind up going down RF Legendary, but the Life Form Disintegration Beam, as well as the teleport come in from Gnar. They pick up a kill on the RF Legendary. Now Zervik's being chased down by Gnar. The Gnar against the wall. The smash, the house, the slam. A triple kill picked up for Zen, the Solo King. Only 9JX is left alive. He hooks in Golden, gets the Ignite down. Can he pick up a kill? Zanya says no, and Ace comes out for Fabi, and that is going to be a 5-for-1 in favor of Nightblue's team.
Excellent teleport from Zen, the Solo King, using it to move down onto the bottom side of that map, get himself in a better position. Obviously, an excellent 1v1 situation against Zervik on that Corki pick. And Goldenglue immediately ulting himself as he engaged in the team. Not that he doesn't have tanky stats, but to deny Azir the Emperor's Divide, that came in so big for the team. Made sure that he was going to get off the max amount of AoE damage and put himself in the middle of the team fight. Just excellent positioning overall from Nightblue's team, and a good engage from Goldenglue.
Not only that fight going well for Nightblue's team, but the 4th dragon has been picked up as well. That now means they have the 15% damage to minions and monsters. They have the movement speed. They have the tower damage. They have the overall AD and AP. One more dragon, they're going to be getting that coveted 5th dragon buff, and it's only 26 minutes in this game, Sifa. Nightblue's team 16 kills to 4, 44.9k to 39.2k in the gold count, and it doesn't even matter how many Azir towers they've killed right now. The tower lead's still in their favor, as the bottom lane was picked up by Zen, the Solo King, before he even went back after that engagement. 5-1-2, speaking of on Zen, the Solo King's Gnar. 2-0-5 on Goldenglue with Lysandra in the mid lane, and Nightblue himself, you know, he has the most deaths on his team at 2, but he's making so many plays with this Lee Sin that Trick on Udyr just can't replicate.
Yeah, and you can see Trick now picking up that Elixir of Ruin. Definitely wants to move into his mid to late game strategy, which for those of you who haven't been watching the tournament, as the game moves forward, Trick2g continues to split push while the core of his team, usually the AD carry, support, and mid laner, usually push together as a squad. RF Legendary on that Jace this game means he will push as well. We're going to see that 4-1 split push, and so much poke coming out from the top might mean that this will work out, but they have to play very careful. Lissandra and Gnar, two of the strongest champions in the current meta, pretty much banned out every week in this past OGN preseason, but the fact that, Nightblue squad got both of these picks is a pretty big oversight from Trick2g's team. I think they kind of overestimated the strength of this year.
Well, we saw the Frost Queen's claim starting things off as the Zingy once again went Fabi. The double ultimate combination just blowing up Stompus in the mid lane. Zerbik's the next one they're going to lock onto as he winds up going down. It's 2 for the price of none right now, as it looks like Nightblue's team, they're going to set their sights on Baron here. 4 dragon buffs, or 4 dragons killed for the stack, as well as Baron buff to help push with these minions. It's looking really grim for Trick in his army.
Yeah, and this is a tough start for them, They do have the potential to come back here, but if Baron buff can be transitioned into a 5th dragon, it will pretty much be GG. You can see Trick2g split pushing down the bot lane. Hasn't cracked that Elixir of Ruin, but I'm sure he will shortly as he does approach the turret. And trading this turret for Baron, not going to be a huge deal here. Baron giving a gold advantage and that massive buff, along with the improved recall, means Trick2g is not going to be able to get a whole lot out of this situation, although Nightblue's team, perhaps a little bit too eager to kill 9JX in this situation, will have to give up the turret.
9JX did stall for as long as he could. We saw RF Legendary teleporting down to the bottom here to help Trick take down that tier 2 bottom tower. It is now 5 towers compared to 5 down for both of these teams, but the Baron buff has been picked up here. RF Legendary trying to play a little sneaky, and the brush over there is going to want to try to get away. Meanwhile, Goldenglue picks up a solo kill on Zerbik as well as getting to that tower. So now it's 6 compared to 5. RF Legendary trying the great escape on the top side of the map. Same thing for Trick as he flashes away on the bottom side of the map. Nightblue and a Zingy chasing after one. Looks like Fabi's the only one chasing after RF Legendary. Going to wind up hiding in a brush is Jace. Running around is going to wind up getting a recall off, or is he? Fabi putting a ward down in the brush does not spine him. The collateral damage goes off. Now Fabi is on to RF Legendary. He blows him up. Meanwhile, Trick was able to get away in the bottom lane, but still, kills all across the map for Nightblue's team. 21 kills to 4. They have the Baron buff. They have all the time in the world right now, Sifa. Things looking very good for the red team.
Red team playing phenomenally. You can see now that as we've moved forward in this tournament, every week these games have gotten more and more competitive. The team captains rallying their teams, making stronger calls, building stronger teams as they see how each of these players performs in a ranked 5v5 environment. And one of the big things that we've seen kind of diminish as these games have gone on are these target bans. This game, of course, the exception. We saw so many target bans for RF Legendary and Trick2g's team, also trying to deny that Draven from Fabi, trying to deny a couple more comfort picks as well, but instead, they left open this Lissandra and Gnar, and I know I've been pushing a little hard on this, but they're very strong. You need to be careful about how you let people play these champions, and unfortunately, when RF Legendary can't play a split-pushing champion as well, Trick2g just does not provide enough pressure as Udyr in a lot of these situations to stop objectives. RF Legendary on Nidalee, RF Legendary on Rek'Sai may have been a different story, but with both those champions banned out, Trick2g seems unable to change his strategy, which has been, and probably always will be, split pushing in games like this.
Well, we find ourselves here at another pause in the Omen encounter. Semi-final, best of 5, game number 1. Trick's team on the blue side, Nightblue's team on the red side. And I mean, I haven't been around for the past couple weeks due to Christmas and everything, so I haven't seen how the drafts have been going, but looking down the side of Nightblue's team, every single one of those players has been on a challenger team, or has, even in the case of Goldenglue, has some LCS experience or competed in the expansion tournament. On Trick's team, it really kind of shows that these are the players that you see in solo queue. These are the guys that you watch. You watch your streams. They have a very, very popular fan following, and they are very good individual players. But looking at the scoreboard right now, looking at the tower count, Azir Tower is with or without holding in that circumstance here. Just the cohesiveness of Nightblue's team, which they pulled off the last match against QtPie's team as well, looking extremely, extremely strong. It's just a force of 5 compared to 5 individual players.
Yeah, and the other thing to consider in this situation specifically is that Nightblue, came into this draft with a little bit of a disadvantage. Ooh, bear with me. And the big thing is he was not completely aware of the rules as we came into the final week's draft. Did not know that the goal was to draft the team with the most points, and so picked up Zen the Solo King, unaware that Zen the Solo King only had 10 points, putting himself at a disadvantage, giving himself 4th seed in this tournament, meaning that he has to play the most amount of matches to get the win. However, You know, Zen the Soul King may have only had 10 points, may have only gotten that one win during the regular matches, but is just playing so phenomenally now that the pressure's on in these finals. So maybe a little bit of oversight from everybody else, a little too focused on drafting the highest point earning team and not the best team possible.
Hey, if SKT could do it last year, Nightblue's team could do it this year in Omen Encounter. Kappa.
But okay. I'd also like to take this moment to note that whoever named Gnar's ultimate Gnar is awful. Either that or they should make a video, put out a video where they tell casters how to say it, like in some dramatic voice, so that people know.
That's why you Gnar them against the wall. That's the objective.
Gnar them again. But what if you don't? You missed the Gnar?
Yeah, then
the Gnar fails?
Then you're Gnarful. It does look like
I'll go back to solo casting now, please.
It does look like that the problems have been resolved. Golden Glue seems to have disconnected from the game. He is now back into it, and thus the unpause comes in. 4 kills for Trick's team, 21 for Nightblue's team. That, as well as many other factors here, contribute to a very large lead currently for Nightblue's team. They do have a Baron buff and 4 Dragon stacks on them. Dragon, speaking of that, is going to be up in about 25 more seconds. The Baron buff not going to last much longer after that one, but still, being able to use this Baron buff to push up these lanes means that there's vision forward for them on the Dragon buff, and they're able to do things like catch 9JX out in his own jungle here. Nightblue picks up that kill, blows up the enemy support, and over the wall here's Zen the Solo King trying to take on Strampus. Strampus goes forward, the Emperor's Divide goes out, Zen the Solo King dropped pretty low, but he is going to be able to back away as the rest of Nightblue's team continuing to poke over the wall of Trick's own base.
Yeah, and here's the thing here, you see that Zen the Solo King has no damage, and only a small amount of MR, but because he is so far ahead at this point in the game, able to almost come out on top in that 1v1 situation against Strampus, which is just really rough to lose the whole usage. If he does have that Electro Pop, looks like Zervik may go down here.
Ooh, Golden Glue just dealing a lot of damage by himself and a little bit of a 1v2 situation at the tower siege here. They are going to end up using that Baron buff just a little bit longer to push those minions up down there. Do see a 5th dragon going over to Nightblue's team, and Zen the Solo King finds a wild Trick2g in a rush. Fabby's going to be the one that catches him right there. He picks up another kill for himself. 6-1 and 5 on the grades after a rough laning phase. Fabby definitely coming into a big factor here as the team fight phase started grouping up for both of these teams. Golden Glue in the meantime still playing a little duck and dodge in the bottom lane, is able to get away, but drops himself down to a little bit below half HP right here. The rest of Nightblue's team with this 5th Dragon buff on there over the wall, poking down as Zingy himself is 4-0 and 10 on the spell cost and blowing people up. Zen the Solo King jumps in, doesn't even need Mega Gnar to pick up 2 kills right here. The rest of Trick's team is jumping down. They pick up a kill on Fabby, however, but it looks like the cleanup from Golden Glue is good enough there. A double kill picked up for him. An ace comes out for Nightblue's team. It's a 5-for-1, and the votes come out. Trick's army throws in the towel. Game number 1 of this best of 5 series gonna go over to Nightblue.
Playing so phenomenally, showing so much proficiency on this hard engage comp. Really curious to see how Trick2g's team is going to adapt from this. And like you said, that Gnar pick coming in so strong despite building full tank, despite not having the Mega Gnar form, as I thought would be required when you have that much of a gold advantage. He just does so much damage with that Boomerang Blade and of course with that Hyper. So much work done.
Well, guys, we are going to be setting up for game number 2 of this best of 5 here. Nightblue's team is up 1-0. Can Trick and his army tie it up, or will Nightblue's team advance one more game closer to trying to take on Voyboy's team in the finals at the Omen Encounter? Guys, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll find out the answer to that one in just a little bit, so don't